I'm Vicki, 28 years old, and I'm standing in my empty apartment with keys in hand while my sister screams at me through the doorway. She's holding baby Lily while Emma and Noah cling to her legs, their faces streaked with tears. "You can't just leave us like this!" Melissa shrieks, her voice cracking with desperation. I look at her calmly, my decision already made. "I'm not leaving you, Melissa. I'm setting boundaries." She doesn't know yet that I've already canceled all the utilities. But let me tell you how I got here. Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you've ever dealt with family members who crossed boundaries, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, this journey of family drama, betrayal, and ultimate triumph is one you won't want to miss. Life was good before Melissa called that fateful September evening. I had worked my way up to senior marketing manager at a prestigious tech firm in downtown Seattle, and my two-bedroom apartment reflected that success. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Space Needle, and I'd carefully decorated every corner to create my personal sanctuary. That Tuesday night, I was reviewing quarterly projections when my phone rang. Melissa's sobs were immediate and heartbreaking. "Derek left me," she choked out between gasps. "I have nothing, Vicki. The kids and I are going to be homeless." My protective instincts kicked in instantly. Melissa had 3 beautiful children, Emma, 5 years old, with curious brown eyes, Noah, an energetic 3-year-old, and baby Lily, just 8 months old. Derek had apparently been having an affair with his secretary, the oldest cliché in the book, and had abandoned his family without warning. Melissa had lost her job at the dental office during her maternity leave when they claimed they needed to downsize. "Pack your things," I told her without hesitation. "You're moving in with me tomorrow." The first month felt like a blessing in disguise. Having Melissa and the kids around brought life to my usually quiet apartment. She seemed genuinely grateful, cooking elaborate dinners as her way of saying thank you, keeping the apartment spotless while I worked. I'd come home to the smell of homemade lasagna and the sound of children's laughter. Emma particularly attached herself to me, waiting by the door each evening with a book clutched to her chest. "Aunt Vicki, can you read me the princess story again?" became our nightly ritual. Melissa appeared to be actively job hunting, leaving early each morning in her interview clothes laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She'd created a color-coded schedule on the refrigerator showing her interview times and my work meetings, seemingly considerate of our shared space. "I've got 3 interviews this week," she'd announce proudly over breakfast. "The dental assistant position at Smile Bright looks really promising." But warning signs began creeping in like shadows at dusk. One afternoon, I came home early with a migraine to find Melissa returning from her interview with multiple shopping bags from Nordstrom. "Oh, I had to look professional for these interviews," she explained quickly, shoving the bags into her room. "Can't get a job looking frumpy, right?" I noticed the receipt sticking out showed a purchase time of 11 in the morning when she'd supposedly been in an interview. The first time she left the kids without asking, I chalked it up to miscommunication. I was working from home on a Friday when Melissa breezed past my office. "Just running to the store real quick. Kids are napping." 4 hours later, I was managing a crisis with 3 cranky children while trying to lead a virtual client meeting. Emma had wet herself, Noah was screaming for snacks, and baby Lily needed a diaper change. My client could hear the chaos despite my muted microphone. When Melissa finally returned, she seemed surprised by my frustration. "Oh, come on, Vicki. You were home anyway. What's the big deal?" That evening we had our first real confrontation. I tried to approach it calmly, sitting her down after the kids were asleep. "Melissa, I want to help you, but I need you to respect my work schedule. I can't babysit without notice." Her transformation was instant and devastating. Tears pooled in her eyes as she crumpled into herself. "I'm so sorry," she wailed. "I'm just so overwhelmed. Derek abandoned us. I can't find a job, and now even my own sister thinks I'm a burden." My heart clenched with guilt. You're not a burden, I assured her, pulling her into a hug. Just please ask me first next time. She nodded against my shoulder, and I thought we'd reached an understanding. How naive I was. The pattern established itself so gradually that I almost didn't notice the water beginning to boil around me. Quick errands became regular 6-hour disappearances. I'd receive a text at the last minute running to pharmacy kids are watching cartoons. By the time she returned, I'd have missed conference calls, postponed deadlines, and fed 3 hungry children multiple meals. My home office became a makeshift daycare toys scattered across my professional space, sticky fingerprints decorating my computer monitor. Warren, my boss who'd been my champion for years, started noticing the shift. "Vicki, you missed the Johnson presentation yesterday," he said during our one-on-one. "That's the 3rd important meeting this month. What's going on?" I couldn't explain that I'd been trapped at home with a teething baby and 2 toddlers because my sister had vanished again. "Family emergency," I mumbled, watching his faith in me dim slightly. "We need you focused," he warned gently. "The Morrison campaign is too important to fumble." Then Jake entered our lives like a hurricane of dysfunction. Melissa met him at what she claimed was a job fair, but what I later learned was a dive bar's afternoon happy hour. Jake was 35, unemployed, and called himself a musician despite having no discernible talent or ambition. His guitar was the only thing he seemed to own besides ripped jeans and vintage band t-shirts. "He's helping me through this difficult time," Melissa gushed as Jake sprawled on my Italian leather sofa, his dirty boots leaving marks. "You don't mind if he hangs out sometimes, right?" Sometimes became every day. Then, overnight stays. My utility bills tripled within a month as Jake set up his gaming system in my living room, running it 18 hours a day while smoking on my balcony despite the lease violation. He'd raid my refrigerator, finishing expensive items I'd bought for myself, leaving empty containers for me to discover. My home office became his recording studio without permission, my work calls interrupted by his off-key strumming. The social media posts started appearing like salt in my wounds. While I struggled to balance her children and my career, Melissa documented her living my best life journey. Photos at wine bars at 2 in the afternoon captioned, "Self-care isn't selfish." Selfies from the mall tagged, "Retail therapy because I deserve it." Videos from concerts and clubs while I received frantic texts about diaper emergencies. My friend Carla sent me a screenshot where Melissa had checked into a spa. The timestamp matched exactly when I'd been forced to leave a crucial client meeting because the daycare called saying no one had picked up Emma. My work performance crumbled like a house of cards. The Morrison campaign, my baby, my chance at a promotion, failed spectacularly when I missed the final deadline. I'd been handling a babysitting emergency that Melissa had created by disappearing to a music festival with Jake. Warren's disappointment was palpable. "I don't know what's happening with you, Vicki, but this isn't the employee I promoted last year," he said, sliding the failed project reports across his desk. "Todd will be taking over the Henderson account." The confrontation that night was explosive. "You're sabotaging my career," I shouted finally at my breaking point. Melissa's response was a masterclass in manipulation. "Sabotaging," she laughed bitterly. "I'm a single mother trying to survive. Sorry if my existence inconveniences your precious career. Must be nice to only worry about yourself." Jake emerged from my bedroom, yes, my bedroom, wearing my robe. "Yo, Vicki, chill out. Your sister's been through enough without you attacking her." Mrs. Chin, my elderly neighbor, stopped me in the hallway the next morning. "I saw your sister at the spa yesterday during her job interview." She mentioned carefully, her wise eyes full of concern. "My daughter works there." "Your sister had the full package treatment." My stomach dropped. "Also," Mrs. Chin continued quietly, "I've seen that man going through your mail. Perhaps you should check your statements." That evening, I discovered Melissa had been withdrawing cash from my emergency stash, small amounts I hadn't noticed accumulating to over $2,000. When I checked my mail, I found opened envelopes hastily resealed. The kids' behavior had deteriorated too. Sweet Emma now threw tantrums when I couldn't immediately drop everything for her. "Mommy says you have to watch us because you don't have real responsibilities like her," she parroted one afternoon, her words a knife between my ribs. Even the children had become weapons in Melissa's arsenal of exploitation. The web of deception Melissa had spun reached far beyond my apartment walls. Carla called me on a Wednesday afternoon, her voice hesitant. "Vicki, I need to tell you something. I was at Brewster's Coffee this morning and I overheard Melissa talking to a group of moms from Emma's school." My heart sank as Carla continued. "She was telling them you're controlling and bitter, that you resent her for having children when you can't keep a man. She said you make her feel worthless and use money to manipulate her." The character assassination was thorough and strategic. Those moms were part of my gym, my neighborhood, my social circle. I started noticing the shifted glances, the conversations that stopped when I approached the sudden cancellations of lunch plans. Melissa had painted herself as the struggling single mother heroically enduring her cruel sister's grudging charity. Then came the parental betrayal. My phone rang during a rare quiet moment at work. Dad's voice was stern, disappointed in a way I hadn't heard since high school. "Vicki, your mother and I are very concerned about how you're treating Melissa. She called us crying last night." I gripped the phone tighter. "Dad, did she tell you about disappearing for hours, about her boyfriend living in my apartment?" His sigh was heavy with judgment. "She's going through a divorce, Vicki. Where's your compassion family helps family, no questions asked?" Mom was worse. Her guilt trips were surgical, targeting every insecurity I'd ever had. "You've always been jealous of Melissa," she said during her call. "Just because she chose motherhood over career doesn't make her less valuable. I'm ashamed that you're making her feel unwelcome. What would grandmother think?" The irony was suffocating. Our grandmother had been the one to teach me about self-respect and boundaries, lessons apparently forgotten when convenient. I discovered Jake had copied my spare key without permission when I came home to find his entire band setting up in my living room. 4 strangers with equipment cases and amplifiers turning my sanctuary into a recording studio. "Jake gave us the key," the drummer explained cheerfully. "Sweet setup you got here." My laptop was missing from my office. When I confronted Jake, he shrugged. "Borrowed it for some recording software. Relax, it's not like you were using it." The laptop contained sensitive client information, project proposals, my entire professional life. The next betrayal came from an unexpected source. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "This is Derek. I need to talk to you about Melissa. Can we meet?" Against my better judgment, I agreed to coffee at a discreet location downtown. Derek looked haggard, aged 10 years since I'd last seen him at Emma's birthday party. "I need you to know the truth," he began without preamble. "I didn't abandon them. Melissa cheated throughout our marriage, multiple men. I have proof Lily isn't even mine, but I've been paying child support for all 3 kids." He showed me bank statements, text messages, photos from private investigators. The story unraveled further. "She told everyone I left for my secretary. I don't even have a secretary. I'm a contractor. She created this narrative to gain sympathy while hiding that I caught her with her personal trainer in our bed. I left because she refused counseling and kept lying." My hands shook as I absorbed this information. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He laughed bitterly. "Would you have believed me over your sister?" The financial betrayals multiplied like a virus. A credit alert popped up on my phone about a new card opened in my name. When I called the company, they confirmed the application had my information, but a different phone number, Melissa's. She'd already charged $3,000 in 2 days. I spent hours on the phone, freezing accounts, filing fraud reports, trying to protect what remained of my financial stability. Work reached a critical point when Warren called me into his office with HR present. "Vicki, we've received concerning information about your behavior outside of work." My blood ran cold as he pulled up Melissa's social media. "Your sister has posted some disturbing content suggesting you've been threatening her and her children. While we understand personal situations are complex, we can't have employees whose conduct reflects poorly on the company." The video was damning out of context. It showed me grabbing Melissa's wrist, my face contorted in anger, her cowering away. What it didn't show was me stopping her from taking my grandmother's jewelry box to pawn, or her scratching my arms in the struggle. The audio was conveniently muted where she'd been screaming obscenities about my pathetic spinster life. All viewers saw was an aggressive woman attacking a defenseless single mother. "I'm being placed on administrative leave pending investigation," I told Carla that night, sobbing into my wine. "My own sister is systematically destroying my life, and everyone believes I'm the villain." Mrs. Chen appeared at my door with tea and wisdom. "Sometimes, dear, you must lose everything to win your life back," she said cryptically. "Your sister counts on your pride keeping you fighting. What if you stopped playing her game?" The final straw came on a Thursday evening. I returned from a humiliating meeting with HR to find the apartment silent. Too silent. Emma sat on the couch trying to feed baby Lily a bottle of water because there was no formula. Noah had gotten into the kitchen cabinet, cereal scattered everywhere. "Where's Mommy?" I asked gently. Emma shrugged. "She and Jake went to adult fun time, said you'd be home soon." The clock showed they'd been gone for 4 hours. 4 hours, 3 children under 6 left alone. As I heated formula and comforted crying children, something inside me finally snapped, or perhaps finally healed. The morning of my career-defining presentation arrived with deceptive calm. After weeks of chaos, Melissa seemed genuinely supportive, even apologetic. "I know how important today is," she said over breakfast, bouncing Lily on her hip. "I'll handle everything with the kids. You focus on knocking them dead at work." Her smile seemed sincere, her promises solid. Even Jake mumbled encouragement through his cereal. I left the apartment feeling cautiously optimistic, my presentation materials perfect, my confidence slowly rebuilding. The conference room was packed with executives, potential investors, and Warren, who'd given me this last chance to redeem myself. I was 45 minutes into my presentation, hitting every mark, watching faces transform from skeptical to impressed. My phone, supposedly on silent, began buzzing insistently. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Then Warren's assistant entered, whispering urgently in his ear. His face paled as he looked at me. "Vicki, you need to take this call. It's the daycare. There's an emergency." My hands trembled as I answered. "Miss Vicki." "This is Sunshine Daycare. Someone dropped off Emma and Noah 2 hours ago saying you'd authorized it, but you're not on our approved list. We've been trying to reach their mother. The baby isn't even registered here. We need someone to pick them up immediately, or we'll have to call social services." The room spun as I apologized profusely to the executives, watching my last chance at redemption crumble. Warren's face said everything. Todd, my ambitious colleague, stepped smoothly into my place as I fled. The drive to the daycare was a blur of rage and resignation. I found my nieces and nephew in the director's office, Emma crying quietly while holding Lily, Noah destroying a puzzle in frustration. "Mommy said Aunt Vicki would come," Emma whispered. "She said she had an important appointment." The daycare fees for the emergency drop-off emptied my checking account. The director's judgment was palpable as she lectured me about proper child care arrangements. Returning home with 3 exhausted children, I found my sanctuary transformed into a nightmare. Jake's belongings had multiplied like fungi throughout my space. His band equipment dominated the living room, his clothes spilling from my bedroom, empty beer bottles creating an obstacle course. Melissa and Jake were in my bed, my safe space, my private retreat. "Oh, hey," Jake said casually, not even attempting to cover himself. "We needed more room with all the baby stuff. Figured you wouldn't mind crashing on the couch. It's pretty comfortable." The violation was complete. My bedroom, my grandmother's antique dresser now scarred with water rings from their drinks, my walk-in closet reorganized to accommodate Melissa's expanding wardrobe. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice deadly quiet. Melissa emerged wearing my silk robe, the one I'd bought myself for my promotion last year. "Don't be dramatic, Vicki. It's just temporary until we figure things out. Besides, you're hardly ever here anymore." The gasoline on the fire came when I noticed gaps in my closet. My designer clothes, carefully collected over years of hard work, were missing. "Oh, those old things," Melissa said dismissively when confronted. "Some were so outdated and you never wear them. I figured I could get good money to help with the kids' expenses." She'd sold my belongings, my Armani suits, my Louboutin shoes, my Burberry coat on resale sites. The screenshots she reluctantly showed revealed thousands of dollars in sales, none of which had gone to children's expenses based on the new gaming system Jake was enjoying. When I tried to establish boundaries, Jake's true nature emerged. He stood using his height to intimidate, backing me against the wall. "Listen here," he growled, his breath reeking of marijuana and neglect. "Your sister's been through enough. You're going to stop making problems or things are going to get really uncomfortable for you in your own home." His hand slammed the wall beside my head for emphasis. The threat was clear, the violence implied but unmistakable. Melissa filmed the aftermath, catching my tears, my shaking hands, my raised voice as I told them to get out. Her editing skills were impressive. The posted video showed only my aggression, my unhinged behavior, carefully cropped to hide Jake's intimidation. "My sister just attacked us for trying to make space for the baby," her caption read. "I'm terrified for my children's safety, but have nowhere else to go. Please share this to spread awareness about family abuse." The video went viral in our community within hours. Warren called personally this time. "I'm sorry, Vicki, but this is beyond what we can overlook. The board has seen the video. We're terminating your employment effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your belongings tomorrow." 7 years of dedication, growth, and achievement evaporated in a single phone call. My professional reputation, carefully built through long nights and sacrificed weekends, destroyed by cleverly edited footage. My parents' reaction was the final nail. "We're cutting you off until you get help," Dad announced, Mom crying in the background. "Melissa showed us everything. The aggression, the resentment, the cruelty to those poor children. We've transferred money to Melissa for the children's sake, but you're not welcome at family gatherings until you've addressed your issues." The irony of them giving money to Melissa while cutting me off for protecting myself wasn't lost, just painful. Alone on my couch that night, exiled from my own bedroom, jobless family. I stared at the ceiling until Mrs. Chen's soft knock interrupted my spiral. "I brought tea," she said simply, settling beside me with surprising grace. "And wisdom if you'll hear it." She sipped her tea thoughtfully. "In my country, we have a saying, 'Sometimes you must burn the bridge to light the way forward.' Your sister counts on your fear of losing, but what if losing everything is how you win?" Her words sparked something. As she described her own escape from an abusive marriage decades ago, how she'd walked away from everything to build a new life, a plan began forming. "The lease," I whispered suddenly. "The apartment lease is in my name only. It expires in 10 days. Mrs. Chen smiled knowingly. "And the utilities, all in my name. The credit cards Melissa used, my name. The car insurance, my name. Everything she'd taken for granted bore my name and my responsibility. The next morning, while Melissa and Jake slept off their latest party in my bed, I found my youngest niece alone again, hungry, sitting in a soiled diaper. Noah was trying to climb the bookshelf while Emma attempted to make breakfast, standing on a chair to reach the stove. The neglect was documented in photos, videos, careful evidence of pattern behavior. As I changed Lily and fed the children, my resolve crystallized into diamond-hard determination. Sometimes Mrs. Chen was right. You had to lose everything to win. And I was ready to light that bridge on fire. The plan unfolded with military precision over 2 weeks of careful preparation. By day, I played the broken sister shoulders, slumped in defeat, avoiding confrontation, while Melissa and Jake grew increasingly bold in their occupation of my life. By night, I became a documentary filmmaker, recording everything with hidden cameras I'd purchased with cash. The neglect, the threats, the casual cruelty toward the children, all captured in high-definition clarity. Beth, my lawyer friend from college, reviewed the footage in her office with growing horror. "This is beyond civil dispute, Vicki. This is criminal neglect, fraud, theft, and assault." She helped me understand my rights and options, building a case file that would protect me legally while extracting myself from the situation. Document everything. Every penny spent, every threat made, every hour you've provided childcare. We're going to need it all. The apartment hunting happened in secret, Mrs. Chen accompanying me like a protective grandmother. She knew the city's hidden gems, the small landlords who valued good tenants over credit checks. We found a studio apartment in a security building across town, small but safe, with a view of the mountains instead of the Space Needle. "New beginnings don't need to be grand," Mrs. Chen said as I signed the lease. "They just need to be yours." The financial documentation revealed staggering numbers. Over 5 months, I'd provided $42,000 in support through rent, utilities, food, childcare, and stolen funds. The receipts painted a picture of systematic exploitation that even my parents couldn't deny when presented properly. Every dinner Melissa claimed to cook but ordered on my credit card, every spa treatment during job interviews, every concert ticket while I watched her children meticulously cataloged. Moving preparations happened in fragments to avoid suspicion. Important documents went to a safety deposit box. Valuables traveled to storage units in small loads during supposed grocery runs. Carla harbored my grandmother's jewelry and family photos, the items that couldn't be replaced. My new employer, impressed by my honest explanation of my situation, and Warren's glowing reference despite everything arranged for my start date to coincide with my escape. The position at Morrison Competitors came with a 50% salary increase and a signing bonus that would cover my new security deposit and moving expenses. "We've been trying to poach you for years," the CEO admitted during our clandestine meeting. "Warren says you're the best strategist he's ever trained, and your current situation only proves your integrity. Someone willing to sacrifice their career for family, even toxic family, is someone we want on our team." As D-Day approached, Melissa and Jake's behavior became increasingly brazen. They planned a Vegas trip using my credit cards, discussing it openly as if I weren't present. Jake had located my grandmother's ring, the one piece I'd hidden, poorly planning to propose to Melissa with a family heirloom from the family she was destroying. Their arrogance was my advantage, making them blind to the boxes slowly disappearing, the subtle changes in my demeanor from defeat to determination. The masterstroke came when I discovered Melissa had been collecting government assistance by claiming to be homeless while living in my luxury apartment. The fraud was federal, serious, and completely documented in her own social media posts, showing off her lifestyle while claiming poverty to agencies. Beth added it to our file with grim satisfaction. "This changes everything. She won't be able to claim victim status when federal fraud is involved." 3 days before the move, I conducted final recordings. Melissa, drunk on wine and confidence, admitted everything to Jake while I slept on the couch. "She's so pathetic," she laughed, still trying to play happy family, as if anyone would want her uptight workaholic personality. "At least I'm smart enough to use what she offers. Why struggle when your sister's a walking ATM?" Jake's response was equally damning. "Once we get that ring, and I propose we'll push for power of attorney. Say she's having a mental breakdown. Your parents already think she's lost it." Mrs. Chen helped me coordinate with professional movers who specialized in quick, quiet extractions. They'd arrive at dawn while the household slept, removing only my belongings with surgical precision. Every item was photographed and cataloged to prevent claims of theft. The utilities were scheduled for disconnection at noon, giving them time to wake up and understand their situation, but not enough time to prevent it. Derek received copies of all documentation regarding the children's neglect with Beth's assistance. His lawyer was prepared to file emergency custody petitions the moment I gave the signal. "You're saving my children," he said, tears in his eyes as he reviewed the evidence. "I've been trying to prove neglect for months, but without someone on the inside." His gratitude was unnecessary. Those innocent children deserved better than being pawns in their mother's schemes. The night before departure, I performed my final duties as an aunt. I bathed each child, read them stories, and tucked them in with extra kisses. Emma sensed something clinging to me with innocent desperation. "Are you going away, Aunt Vicki?" she whispered. I smoothed her hair, choosing honesty. "I have to for a while, sweetheart. But I'll always love you, and I'll make sure you're taken care of. Be brave for me." She nodded solemnly, too young to understand, but old enough to feel the shift coming. My last night on the couch was sleepless but productive. I drafted emails to family friends with the full documentation scheduled to send after my departure. Social media posts with receipts, evidence, and truth waited in my drafts. The credit card companies were notified of exact cancellation times. The landlord had the eviction notice ready. Every domino was positioned, waiting for the gentle push that would start the cascade. Tomorrow I would reclaim my life by walking away from everything I'd built, and I'd never felt more ready. Moving day arrived with Pacific Northwest perfection drizzling rain providing natural cover for the operation. At exactly 6 in the morning, while Melissa and Jake lay entangled in my former bed, the professional moving team arrived with practiced stealth. They worked like a special ops unit, wrapping furniture and moving blankets to muffle sound, communicating in hand signals, transforming my carefully curated life into a truck-bound exodus in under 3 hours. I moved through the apartment one final time, my smartphone documenting the condition of every room. Jake's drug paraphernalia carelessly left on my antique coffee table. Melissa's shopping bags piled in corners, tags still attached to items purchased with my credit. The children's room heartbreakingly neglected compared to their mother's space toys broken and clothes outgrown. Every frame told the story of priorities misplaced and trust betrayed. The note I left on the counter was brief but comprehensive. "Melissa, the lease ends in 3 days. I have not renewed it. All utilities will be disconnected at noon today. The credit cards are canceled. Your possession of this apartment without a lease constitutes trespassing. Derek has been notified about the children's welfare. Your parents will receive full documentation of our financial arrangements. I wish you the growth that comes from standing on your own feet. Vicki." By 9:30, I sat in my new studio apartment watching the city wake up from a different angle. Carla arrived with coffee and my grandmother's jewelry box, her fierce hug saying everything words couldn't capture. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually escaped." The relief was overwhelming, but the day's drama was far from over. My phone, now on a new number known only to essential contacts, began buzzing with updates from Mrs. Chen, my spy in the old building. At noon, precisely, the utilities shut off like dominoes falling. Power first cutting Jake's gaming session midstream. Then water interrupting Melissa's leisurely shower. Internet and cable followed, severing their connection to the digital world they'd exploited so thoroughly. Mrs. Chin reported the first sounds of distress at 12:15, Jake's colorful vocabulary echoing through suddenly thin walls as he realized his electronic empire had crumbled. The social media explosion began at 12:47. I posted everything simultaneously across all platforms. $42,000 in receipts, videos of neglect, audio of threats, screenshots of Melissa's fraud applications alongside her luxury purchases. The narrative she'd carefully crafted inverted in minutes as friends and family absorbed the documented truth. Each post was tagged strategically, ensuring maximum visibility among our mutual connections and her children's school community. My parents called at 1:30, their voices shell-shocked. "Vicki, is this all true?" Mom whispered. The wire transfers to Melissa the credit card statements, Derek's testimony about the fake abandonment story all painted a picture they couldn't deny. "We've been such fools," Dad said, his voice breaking. "We chose to believe the easy lie over our daughter who had never lied to us before. Can you forgive us?" The apology was appreciated but premature. "Let's see how you handle what comes next," I replied before ending the call. Derek's lawyer struck at 2 o'clock, serving Melissa with emergency custody papers just as she discovered the eviction notice. The process server, accompanied by police for safety, found her in a towel, powerless apartment in chaos, Jake frantically packing his equipment. The children were predictably unfed and unsupervised. Emma trying to comfort a crying Lily, while Noah drew on walls with markers. Child Protective Services, alerted by the legal filing, arrived minutes later for a welfare check. The video of Melissa's breakdown, captured by multiple neighbors' phones, went viral by evening. She stood in the hallway, wrapped in my grandmother's quilt, screaming about betrayal and abandonment, while Jake loaded his van with everything he could carry. "You planned this!" she shrieked at the security cameras, knowing somehow I'd be watching. "You vindictive, jealous witch! Those are my children. This is my home." The landlord, stone-faced beside the officers, simply held up the lease with my sole signature. Jake's departure was as predictable as sunrise. Faced with actual consequences and no more resources to exploit, he abandoned Melissa mid-meltdown, his van peeling out of the garage while she begged him to stay. The proposal with my grandmother's ring would never happen. He'd already found his next target, a widow with a trust fund he'd met online, moving in with her before nightfall. Melissa's public posts begging him to return were met with his relationship status change to engaged within hours. By 6 o'clock, Melissa sat in the lobby with garbage bags of hastily packed belongings, her phone dead, her resources exhausted. The shelter system, her only option, required sobriety and compliance checks she couldn't pass in her current state. Our parents, finally understanding the monster they'd enabled, offered temporary housing with strict conditions including therapy and job searching. The woman who'd had everything handed to her was finally facing the accountability she'd avoided for 31 years. Derek collected his children at 7, their relief palpable as they ran to their father. Emma clutched a small bag of treasures, including a photo of us from better times. "Daddy, is Aunt Vicki okay?" she asked as they loaded into his car. "She will be, sweetheart," he assured her. "Aunt Vicki is very brave and she made sure you'd be safe." His eyes met mine through the window of Mrs. Chin's apartment, where I watched the scene unfold. The gratitude there was mixed with regret for not acting sooner. The final tally that evening was comprehensive. Melissa had lost her children, her home, her boyfriend, her reputation, and her free ride. The government fraud charges would take months to fully prosecute, but the evidence was overwhelming. Her social media accounts, once weapons against me, became evidence of her lies as former supporters publicly recanted their judgment of me. The narrative had flipped completely. The victim revealed as the perpetrator, the villain vindicated as the hero who'd protected children while being systematically destroyed. As I unpacked boxes in my small but peaceful studio, my new life taking shape around me, I reflected on the day's events. Every careful plan had executed flawlessly, each domino falling exactly as designed. The bridge hadn't just burned, it had exploded in spectacular fashion, lighting the way forward just as Mrs. Chin had predicted. My phone buzzed with messages of support from colleagues, friends, and family members who'd finally seen the truth. But I turned it off, choosing silence over vindication. Tomorrow would be soon enough to begin rebuilding. Tonight, I had my freedom to savor. 6 months later, I stood in my corner office at Morrison Competitors watching the Seattle sunrise paint the mountains gold. The view was different from my old apartment, but the sense of accomplishment was far sweeter. My promotion to Vice President of Strategic Marketing had come after leading 3 successful campaigns that exceeded all projections. Warren had sent a congratulatory note with an admission, "I always knew you were capable of greatness. I'm sorry I didn't look deeper when you needed support." Therapy had been transformative, helping me understand the lifetime of patterns that had made me vulnerable to Melissa's exploitation. Dr. Martinez specialized in family trauma and codependency, guiding me through the painful recognition of how my parents' favoritism toward Melissa had shaped my desperate need for family approval. "You were trained from childhood to sacrifice yourself for her comfort," she explained during one breakthrough session. Breaking that pattern took incredible courage. My parents' journey toward accountability continued with their own therapy. Mom called weekly each conversation, revealing new layers of understanding about the dynamic they'd created. "We made you responsible for Melissa's happiness from the time you were small," she admitted during one tearful call. "Every time she failed, we expected you to fix it. We turned you into a parent when you should have been a child." Dad had started attending codependency support groups, learning how enabling Melissa had actually harmed both daughters. The update on Melissa came through Derek's lawyer. She'd found employment at a retail chain, the kind of job she'd once mocked me for suggesting. Living in a small apartment funded partially by our parents, she attended court-mandated therapy and parenting classes to maintain supervised visitation with her children. Jake had already burned through his new victim's patience and resources, his engagement ending when she discovered his extensive criminal record for fraud. He'd moved on to another target, a predator following predictable patterns. Emma, Noah, and Lily thrived in Derek's custody, supplemented by his new wife Sarah's maternal warmth. Sarah was everything Melissa pretended to be: genuinely loving, stably employed as a teacher, and dedicated to healing the children's trauma. She reached out to me early in their relationship, suggesting regular video calls with the kids and eventual visits. "They talk about you constantly," she said. "You're their hero, the aunt who saved them. That relationship deserves to be preserved." The trust fund I established for the children was managed by Derek and Sarah, ensuring their education and opportunities wouldn't suffer from their mother's choices. Each child had accounts that would mature at 18, protected from Melissa's reach by ironclad legal structures. My financial recovery, aided by the new position's salary and Melissa's court-ordered restitution payments, allowed for generous contributions that felt like investments in breaking generational cycles. Mrs. Chin became my chosen family, our weekly dinners a highlight of my restructured life. She'd introduced me to her daughter Anna, a successful attorney who'd become a close friend and eventual roommate when I upgraded to a larger apartment. The intergenerational household filled gaps I hadn't realized existed, providing the familial warmth I'd craved without the toxic dynamics I'd escaped. "Family isn't just blood," Mrs. Chin reminded me often. "It's choosing who deserves your loyalty." Professional success accelerated beyond my previous dreams. The Morrison Competitors position had been a launching pad to industry recognition. My innovative campaigns caught the attention of major publications, leading to speaking engagements and consultation offers. When Forbes featured me in their 40 Under 40 issue, the article mentioned my comeback from personal crisis as evidence of the resilience that powered professional excellence. The photo showed me confident and composed, no trace of the broken woman on her sister's couch. The unexpected encounter with Melissa happened at Pike Place Market on a Sunday morning. I was selecting flowers with Anna when I heard my name called hesitantly. Melissa stood 10 feet away, looking older, worn by the consequences of her choices. Her clothes were clean but modest, her designer bag replaced by a practical tote. The entitled swagger had vanished, replaced by something that might have been humility. "Vicki," she said again, approaching slowly. "Could we talk just for a minute?" We sat at a coffee shop, the same one where she'd poisoned my reputation years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "I'm in therapy," she began without preamble. "Real therapy, not the performative kind. I'm learning about narcissistic personality patterns and how I've hurt everyone who loved me." Her hands shook slightly around her coffee cup. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did, what I took from you, what I cost you." The apology continued, detailed and specific, acknowledging every betrayal without excuse or minimization. When she finished, tears streaking her face, I sat quietly for a long moment. "I appreciate your words," I finally said, "and I genuinely hope therapy helps you become the mother your children deserve. But I need you to understand that apologizing doesn't erase the damage or entitle you to a place in my life. I forgive you for my own peace, but I choose not to forget. I wish you well, Melissa, but my answer is no. No to rebuilding our relationship. No to second chances. No to opening doors I've fought to close." She nodded, seemingly expecting the response. As she stood to leave, she placed a small wrapped box on the table. "Your grandmother's ring," she said quietly. "Jake never got to pawn it. I've been carrying it, hoping for the chance to return it. You should have it. It belongs with someone who understands its real value." She left without waiting for a response, walking away with the measured steps of someone learning to carry their own weight. A year later, I stood before a room of investors presenting my business plan for a marketing firm specializing in authentic brand narratives. The seed money came from my savings, the expertise from years of rebuilding my own narrative from victim to victor. My parents sat in the front row, their pride genuine but tempered by the understanding of how much their past failures had cost. They'd become better grandparents than they'd been parents, learning from their mistakes with the next generation. The company launch party filled my new loft with chosen family and genuine supporters. Warren attended, bringing several potential clients. Mrs. Chin held court in the corner, telling embarrassing stories about my early attempts at cooking in my first studio apartment. Derek and Sarah brought the children, Emma, now 7, and poised beyond her years, reading a poem she'd written about brave ants and new beginnings. Even my grandmother's ring sparkled from my right hand, reclaimed and repurposed as a symbol of survival rather than tradition. As the evening wound down, I found myself on the balcony, city lights spreading below like possibilities. Anna joined me, raising her champagne glass in a silent toast. "To boundaries and new beginnings," she said, echoing thoughts I hadn't voiced. The words resonated deeper than she knew. I'd lost a sister but gained self-respect. The bills I'd cut off weren't just utilities, they were the lifelong debt of toxic obligation, the crushing weight of misplaced responsibility. Emma appeared at my side, slipping her small hand into mine. "Aunt Vicki, I'm proud of you," she said with the gravity only children can manage. "You showed me that it's okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. When I grow up, I want to be brave like you." I squeezed her hand, throat tight with emotion. This was the real victory breaking cycles, modeling strength, proving that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for everyone, including yourself, is to stop enabling destruction. The party continued inside laughter and hope, filling spaces that had once held manipulation and despair. I'd built this life from scorched earth, grown success from the ashes of everything I'd lost. The freedom hadn't been free. It had cost me everything I thought I needed and given me everything I actually deserved. And as I watched my chosen family celebrate my new beginning, I knew with bone-deep certainty that the price of that freedom had been worth every penny. Looking back, would I do anything differently? Perhaps I would have set boundaries sooner, recognized the patterns faster, protected myself better. But every mistake had been a lesson. Every loss a redirection toward something better. Melissa had been right about one thing during her long-ago manipulations. I had been jealous, not of her motherhood or choices, but of her ability to take without guilt, to receive without reciprocating. I'd envied the ease with which she moved through life, cushioned by other sacrifice. Now I understood that ease came at a cost she was only beginning to pay, while my struggles had forged strength she would never possess. And that strength, that was priceless. Thank you for joining me on this journey of betrayal, survival, and ultimate triumph. If my story resonated with you, if you've faced similar family dynamics or struggled with setting boundaries, I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. What toxic relationships have you had to leave behind? How did you find the courage to prioritize your own well-being over family obligations? Your stories matter, and sharing them helps others realize they're not alone in these struggles. If this video helped you feel validated in your own boundary-setting journey, please hit that like button. It really helps other people who need to hear this message find the video. And if you want more real-life stories about overcoming family drama, surviving toxic relationships, and building better lives from difficult circumstances, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. I share new stories every week, each one showing that you can rise above any situation no matter how impossible it seems. Please share this video with anyone in your life who might be struggling with toxic family dynamics or feeling guilty about protecting their own peace. Sometimes seeing someone else's story gives us permission to write our own ending. Thank you for watching, for supporting this channel, and for being part of this community of survivors and thrivers. Until next time, remember, your peace of mind is not selfish, it's necessary, and you deserve a life free from manipulation and full of genuine love and respect.